on live in three, go up. Welcome to the Blockchain Gamers UniVRse podcast. My name's Ron. To my left, we have Brian.
Hey, what's up?
Annalise.
Hello everyone, I'm Annalise from VNT.
On my right, I got my buddy Patrick.
Hey there, I'm Patrick from Glockwork Records. Nice to chat with you all.
And today we're talking about blockchain gaming, as well as other forms of gaming. So, what's some games that have been grabbing you guys' attention lately? How about you, Brian?
A few, as far as regular, pancake 2D mode games. I know they have a new Samurai Jack game coming out in the near future. Next couple of months is when it's scheduled to release on pretty much all systems. So apparently, from what I heard, it looked like a bit of a rush job, but from the trailer, it seemed like it was a pretty decent looking game. Curious to see how that's going to turn out. Probably going to pick it up if it ends up being good. In the blockchain world, Silicon Nexus has been catching my eye. They've been working on connecting with a lot of games into their system for their arcade system, or for their digital vending machine, is what they call it. So, you go and you get their droid coins, you play these games, anything from Reality Clash to Ether Legends, Crypto Inc., Mytherium, Ethermon, Dissolution, and then you can earn tickets from those games depending on what you play, what mode, single player, multiplayer, mini game, activity, whatever, and then you can spend those on prizes, in-game items or other collectibles, NFTs, things that you can sell, trade, digital assets that you own essentially. So, that's pretty cool. Something that I'm very excited to see once it's been implemented. I've been looking forward to seeing what Silicon Nexus can do for quite some time now. And, yeah, not too much in the top of my head. Besides that, what about you guys?
I have been looking forward to the Sandbox. This is Patrick, by the way. Sandbox looks really cool. It's still in development, but they are actually running their animator and also their designer on page right now. It's at Sandbox, the Sandbox.game. So yeah, something exciting, I'd say. Once again, it's like one of those Minecraft sort of environments where you can build and deploy just about anything to your heart's content, and then actually put it up on the Ethereum marketplace in exchange for, of course, Ether.
That's cool. I heard of Sandbox. And I also wanted to comment on what Brian said. If you guys are actually interested in knowing how Silicon Nexus's vending machine works, there's a video on the Bits and Tokens channel. We did play with the vending machine a little bit at NFT NYC. So it's pretty cool, and the guy Andrew, he actually shows you how to use it, NFTs that are already preloaded into the platform, and where to find them next, so that you could possibly get some NFTs on your wallet. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I absolutely love that video, by the way, that you guys did. I saw it too on the Discord channel as soon as it was uploaded onto YouTube, and I was like, man,
Yeah.
my mind's been blown. It was like my mind was just completely blown. I can't believe that people will be able to go to a vending machine, take out an NFT, and then quite possibly play with it, and then transfer it around. Literally, having a digital asset they can buy from any form of arcade where this is deployed. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a really cool concept. I'm not in. Sorry, yeah, it's a really cool concept. I like the way that they kind of just came up with it. So I don't know. Yeah, I think it's interesting. Eventually, I feel like it's going to be. Let me see. Feedback. Are you guys hearing any feedback? I don't know if it's me. Let me see.
I'm not hearing any feedback. But I think that this is going to tie into esports very well. Like you're going to have NFTs that superstars are going to be playing with, you know, and like it's going to like drive value even more. And quite possibly, people might make clones of those items that might actually sway the market to invest even higher. Like we'll see what happens in the space. It's just my speculation, at least.
I will say I was getting feedback earlier, but it sounds a lot better now. But yeah, I'm glad to that we have the video of Silicon Nexus from NFT NYC. Also, I believe at NFT NYC we had Saw Sandbox; they were there as well. There's a lot of different platforms that are coming out and creating different blockchain games. It's great to see the spaces expanding. NFTs are definitely pushing adoption in this space. A lot of people are gravitating towards NFTs and trying to understand what they are. So for people that don't know what NFTs are, anybody want to go over what an NFT is?
NFT is a non-fungible token, primarily known under the ERC of 721, which is the grandfather of the Ethereum protocol for non-fungible tokens. It's literally just a digital asset that exists in a wallet that represents a specific form of value. That could be a non-disclosure agreement, an item in a video game. It could also be represented of digital real estate as well. So it exists within a decentralized network across many machines and is represented in a wallet.
Absolutely. It's great what's going on with this technology. I like to relate it a lot to like Fortnite and Apex Legends. If you were to get a skin in Fortnite, you can't take it to Apex Legends. Whereas with blockchain games, you could be able to take your crypto kitties from 2017 and put them in another game like MyEther Legends or Somnium Space. And there's a lot of other games that are adapting these, skins, weapons, objects, assets that you could purchase for one game and use in other games. It's really great to see these games that are interoperable. So there's all sorts of platforms. We have 2D console and PC style games. There are VR games that are still a niche market, but they're growing rapidly. And now we have blockchain games that are a new niche, even smaller market that is still growing really fast as people love to play different games. I want to make sure that we touch on all of the different platforms, whether it's 2D, VR, blockchain, and so on. I also think that another platform that's new, really niche, but deserves some shine is streaming games. So I'll touch on streaming real quick. I don't know if any of you guys have heard, but NVIDIA Grid just announced, and basically their streaming platform is allowing you to have a virtual desktop in their cloud where you can be able to play games from your phone, from another computer, and even on your TV, utilizing the NVIDIA Shield. And they got a lot of backlash in the news this week, as once they allowed their game to go live, a lot of developers weren't happy that there was no communication with them on allowing your games to be available on NVIDIA's platform. So imagine you make a game and NVIDIA says your game works with them and you're getting no royalties from anybody on NVIDIA. NVIDIA's charging $5 a month for you to be able to access your games on their cloud. But if you don't have a connection with the developers, that $5 is just going directly to NVIDIA. The developers are getting no piece of the pie from that, and they weren't too happy about that. What do you guys think about that? Is that something that the developers should be worried about when it's a cloud-based system that's just basically allowing you to access your computer in the cloud? Or do you see the NVIDIA Grid as a completely different platform, and because you can access it from any device, a cell phone, a TV, whichever, it's not just a cloud-based virtual monitor, but it's also a whole new console of a sorts? What do you guys think?
I believe that the developers should definitely have a say and share. And also, it is a console. At the end of it, like we're referring to Shield, right? Shield or Now, GeForce Now,
So
right?
Shield, yeah, GeForce Now is the platform. Shield is the device that you can access it on the TV.
Exactly. Kind of like a Chromecast, in a sense, integrating. So with any smart TV through their dongle system. But I completely agree that developers should definitely have a say, and they should also have control over, development. And when it comes down to having the rights to control certain parameters on board, so they can optimize well and deliver a seamless product for the end user. Because, I'd say right now, streaming video games is poorly optimized compared to actually running it natively from a machine. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents, though. What do you think about
I
it,
agree.
Brian?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, go
hopefully
ahead, Brian.
that begins to work. Sorry about that. Honestly, so far I think the technology is still very new, and the companies is trying to make money as they do. Their end goal is to make profits as much as possible. So as far as the fee goes, that they got to charge something for what they're releasing, and try to recoup some of their expenses, whether or not it ends up being very successful. But so far it seems to be going decently well. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews, a lot of people hating it, a lot of people loving it. I guess really just depending on what their internet usage is and availability to it is, and all those combined factors. But I don't know, I wasn't too impressed with their games library, so hopefully they intend to improve on some of these. And as far as Nvidia and all of them go, same situation. As long as they release something that people actually want to use and have content to actually fill it with and make it accessible to people, then I don't think they'll have a problem getting people on board. But as it stands so far, there's seems to be quite a few issues with that. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's not even like they're making games though that are developed specifically for GeForce Now. It looks more so like the games are just games that are accessible on Steam, and instead of needing to buy the games again, you can just access your Steam on this virtual computer of a sort and be able to play it from anywhere.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
that's
one
the
thing to
general.
talk about when. Go ahead.
That's the general, use case for it. Just like how Google Stadia is also relative competition to that business model, So, but
And that's
nonetheless,
one of the things that I also want to touch on as well. And I have Google Stadia, play a couple of games on there. But Google Stadia of a sorts is it's basically I'm renting a whole new console. It's not like where I'm just renting a virtual computer that I can be able to play. There's a physical console that's there that is at Google's servers connected, and then it's just streaming that physical device software directly to my computer or Chromecast. Whereas if you're using GeForce Now, it's not like they made a whole dedicated computer that's running at their where the servers are located and streaming that content to you. It's more of just a virtual computer, one big server system that's divvying up all of the different processing power for each user. That's why I think that like the physical aspect of Stadia versus GeForce Now is not the same, and I understand where the developers are coming from, but at the same time, I understand where the video is trying to go to be able to cater to the end user who I don't want to buy the same game on Steam and then buy the same game on NVIDIA GeForce Now when it's literally the exact same game. It's even running from Steam. I just can't use it because it's on the cloud system versus directly from my computer. I think that might be a little bit silly, but I get the need for developers to be able to have complete control of their content.
absolutely. Hey, Annalise, have you used it yet? Have you used Stadia?
So I've used Stadia. I've played a couple games on it. It's interesting. The only thing I don't like, so I get it. So you have to buy like the controllers, and it comes with the Chromecast and like the game is on the cloud and like everything is built into controllers and it's Bluetooth settings and whatever. But like, I don't know, like I was under the impression at first that like this would like negate you having to like buy all the cross-platform games and like divert that, but it's kind of not until everybody like gets on the same page and like lets it be lets it be cross-platform. Which I mean, I think PlayStation tried that back in the day, and then Xbox said no. So I don't know. Until like that problem is solved, I feel like we're gonna continue to have that issue where nothing is really cross-platform until companies say let's just let the people play together. So I don't know. It's really stupid to me, but Stadia is cool. It's interesting.
I totally, shout out to Epic Games once again. I think we touched base on this like a few weeks back. How like they were literally the first to do cross-platform legit and official. So yeah, I think we should definitely see that trend come into the marketplace because the fans love it, the consumers love it, people just love it, and I don't know why profit has to be over what the fans and the players enjoy. It makes no sense to me. Yeah. What do you guys think about this concept of zero latency, negative latency, actually, that they have yet to implement onto Google Stadia, and which is probably coming to NVIDIA now?
One more time, Patrick. What did you say?
So what do you guys think about the idea and the concept of negative latency, which is...
anti-latency.
Yeah, anti-latency like or they actually said something about predictive analysis of the way the game is going to be controlled by the player. Actually, like machine learning is supposed to be developing so fast that the player's input is going to be predicted by the servers before it's relayed back to the player. That form of latency.
Yeah, I think that's really amazing. I think that's crazy. Right now, one of the biggest things about VR is latency. The time it takes for me to move my head from when I'm physically looking at you and I twist my head to now look at her. The screen in the headset needs to also move with me and see and not have any drop frames along the way. And due to latency, the time it takes for the game and the processing power of everything. For it to go from point A to point B.
Are you having technical difficulties, Jerome? I mean, we were able to hear you. I don't know what happened.
Should be back now.
Yeah, now can you guys hear me?
All right.
You're fine.
So basically, I was just getting at the time that it takes for me to be able to look from point A to point B when you move. That's all due to latency, the time that it takes for it to get from point A to point B. Especially if you're playing a game online, a heavily intense online game, which all of Stadia and GeForce Now games are all running over the internet. So if you are making common sense moves, like I'm turning my head this way, by the time I swing this much, if the game can be able to detect that, okay, chances are he's going to look at her again, being able to predict it, and then on the server side, continue the animation for me to look at her before my actual head gets to her, and making sure that the game is, in sync with what I'm seeing. I think that's going to be amazing for VR. As of right now, it's nowhere near the level for VR, and it's barely even there for 2D gaming with Stadia. There are drop frames here and there, but it really depends on your internet connection. I don't have as much of a problem with Stadia. Here and there, I'll see the quality of the resolution of the game decrease, but it's not as often as some would say on the news. It really just depends on your internet connection. But that's streaming games. I think that's awesome. I love touching on that subject, and we're going to keep coming back to streaming games. But of course, we got to talk about the next niche market, which is definitely VR gaming. And when it comes to VR gaming, the big talk of the town right now has to be Half-Life Alyx. Have you guys seen the new trailer for Half-Life Alyx?
I have, and I've seen gameplay for it as well. It looks great, especially their control functionality that they have going on with it. How you can actually teleport and also seamlessly move around, and two different sorts of parameters, two completely different control mechanisms. I do believe that Half-Life has that, you know, a legacy market of innovating computing in video games. Like, you know, Half-Life 1 was the absolute pinnacle of graphical computations when it first came out. Half-Life 2 was great when it came down to graphics, storytelling, and gameplay. And everything else in between leading up to Alex is nothing short of stellar. And this is definitely going to cement, you know, the VR gaming market. And not only that, I'd say when it comes down to the experience of the game and the environments, it looks so immersive. I think it's next level. It's not necessarily going to be built on blockchain. There's no NFTs that are integrating with the game as we know it yet. But still, like the game looks stellar, AAA grade shooter, and I'm excited to see it come to market. Honestly, one of the best things I've seen come out of the VR space lately. So shout out to Valve and Gabe.
Absolutely, I agree. It's one of the top VR games. Have you guys seen any VR games that are better than Half-Life?
Well, considering that the game hasn't even come out yet, it's kind of hard to judge how it's really going to compete, even with, you know, such quality looking, you know, trailer and gameplay. After all, it is, you know, a Half-Life series game that has been anticipated for, you know, how long now, and, you know, to make it native VR definitely puts a lot of strain and hype on it as far as, you know, something coming out in the VR world. There definitely hasn't been a lot of top-notch AAA qualities until, you know, the past, like, I don't know, year or so, since, you know, Stormland and Asgard's Wrath, and then into The Walking Dead. So it's definitely got a bit of competition. None that are, you know, truly, like, you know, 8 hour plus, besides, you know, Asgard's Wrath or whatever, you know, story and, you know, content-driven games that, you know, bring so much detail and, you know, liveliness to the game. So I'm very, you know, hopeful that it's going to do extremely well. I think most people are, and most people expect a lot of things to come out for it. So I'm very excited to see what it's going to bring to the community and to the, you know, the gaming space and as a whole.
Same. It's gonna be great. A lot of great content coming out of Half-Life, Alex. They're not the only VR game that's coming out soon. A lot of other interesting ones. When I look at like the PlayStation VR, I'm excited for the new Iron Man VR game. And you know, Marvel just overall is killing it with their games and creating great content. If you look at even the 2D console space, there's another Marvel game that just got announced yesterday called Future Revolution. Has anybody seen that one? Annalise, you're in the superheroes. Have you seen that superhero game?
Which game is it?
Future Revolution by Marvel.
I have not seen that game. Didn't even know it existed. I kind of play games when I see them like on the console, or if I see someone else playing it. Like until I don't either see it or come across it or encounter it, I won't mess with it. Just because I'm kind of caught up in my own world at all times. So here we are.
Yep. That's the way it is.
Yeah, I hear that. There's a lot of content out there, a lot of awesome games, but not everybody gets to play them, which is why I'm glad we have platforms like the streaming platforms. I'm really hoping to see that we get like a Netflix for games where you'd be able to just, you know, pay a subscription price and just be able to continuously play the games. I think there's something like that for VR that you could be able to just pay one price, if I'm not mistaken.
They do have the Vive port, if that's what you're talking about. That'd be the closest thing that I'm aware of, but that's definitely quite a bit iffy unless you have a Vive product. So, but it does work very, you know, similar to that. I think it's like $10, $12, something like that every month, and then you get to choose either 3 games or I think it's like get to choose 3 every month out of like a wide selection, and then
Okay, so not like a
switch 'em out.
Netflix for games, but more like a GameFly for VR.
Yeah, and then when you're done, I don't know if you can return them during the month and get a new one, or if you have to wait until the following. But there's something out there for you, so you don't just try before you buy, if you will. So you can just pay like $10 and get a good sampling of what's out there.
Content is king. Wow. There's plenty of great games to come out. I'm excited for the near future. Is there any other topics you guys want to discuss?
I know we haven't really gone over Dissolution much into detail. I know they just released their single-player campaign. I don't know if you got a chance to try it out at all before coming up, but it looks really good. I haven't been able to personally try it either, but so far it's mostly been online, multiplayer. They had a zombies mode, or have a zombies mode, PvP. They have like an assault mode, a bunch of different, game modes you can play. And now they have an actual single player campaign with, ships flying through space, and then, you do some combat in space, and then land down on Earth and do, first person, missions. And I don't know if you earn any tokens or not. I would assume you earn some sort of NFT or digital asset for the trouble, or not really trouble, but for the achievement of going through the game. So that's definitely something to check out if you are a gamer at all. Free to play on Steam, so one of the few crypto games that's currently available on Steam, which is by far the easiest way to access a game of that magnitude, something that's not just a browser title. So I think that's pretty cool. Besides that, nothing else in mind at the very second. Does anyone else have anything to chime in? Annalise?
Here's a
Patrick?
fun question. How do you think the coronavirus is going to affect the gaming industry? Oculus announced, or Facebook announced that they won't have any more Oculus, so that directly affects VR. What else do you think it's going to affect?
Definitely the attendance in the stadiums as well. We're going to see a lot more streaming-based content. So that's definitely.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that for esports. Like, not as much people will go to the esports matches if this coronavirus keeps spreading. I know that Google announced that they're canceling their event, and Facebook, if I'm not mistaken, they canceled F8.
I'm actually
Twitter employees are told to work from home.
Yeah, it's getting kind of bad. It's definitely a state of emergency. So a lot of live events that are supposed to take place this year might not actually happen. Also, Japan might actually cancel the Olympics as well. So we shall see what happens.
I really hope they don't cancel the Olympics, and I mean that has to do with just overall, physical games, not just digital games. But man, that would be a bummer to see the Olympics canceled due to the coronavirus. But it only makes sense. You don't want any of those athletes getting sick, or anybody that comes out to support getting sick from this epidemic.
Yeah, I can definitely see it having an influx on the VR, meetup space, considering all these canceled conferences and, how available these platforms are becoming for people to, just hop in as we're doing and, meet up in whatever world you desire, as opposed to, spending $600 on a conference ticket for halfway across the country that ends up getting canceled. So, I mean, it's not...
My big thing right now is, when you bring up the VR conferences, I love being able to host these events. Go to bitsandtokens.com if you want to be able to have a VR conference. We can, put that in the service request and make that happen. But I look at all of the different platforms that are out there, whether it's Mozilla hubs, Crypto Voxel, Somnium Space, Alt Space, between decentralized platforms and centralized platforms. I haven't yet found, I guess, the perfect platform for being able to create a VR conference that would be able to substitute going to some of these events. There's a lot of different platforms that will be a workaround for those big events, but there's not one yet where I can literally have 10, 15,000 people walking around all on the same server, all paying attention to the same speaker. More so, like with Altspace having front row, we can be able to have thousands of people split across several different servers. Or Somnium Space, I think they said with the new version 2, they have a cap of 2,000 people can fit on the entire server at once. What do you guys think about the influx of people looking for VR conferences versus the hardware and capabilities of being able to handle that many people in VR right now in today's date?
Definitely going to be a bottleneck.
Well, speaking from firsthand experience from our conference back in August, it's definitely not able to manage more than 100 people in any regular confined space. Not to mention the audio issues that it presents, trying to allow everyone to be able to speak at the same time with the same volume, and having all everyone else's audio coming to your ear, even as it quiets down as you walk away. The distance that you need to move away from other people to not hear them, as opposed to just lowering your voice a little bit, and it's definitely something we're gonna have to figure out a solution for.
Yeah, absolutely. Audio issues in virtual reality is, especially if you have two people in the same, house. It's definitely challenging, but it's not impossible. It just takes some troubleshooting. So I'm not too worried about audio issues when it comes to virtual conferencing. It's more so a physical capacity for the amount of people that can be in this space, that I would like to see a developer that enables the option for me to be able to scale up to the how many ever people that want to attend one of these events in virtual reality. So especially because if it's in VR and you don't have a physical space, physical spaces could have a max capacity of, let's say, 1,000, 10,000 people if you're talking about a stadium. But with VR, there shouldn't really be much of a max capacity. I would love to see a platform that can gloat that they can hold 1 million people on the same server. How long do you guys think until that's a possibility?
Well, as you said, with the technology limit, even with Altspace itself, when you're trying to use it on, say, the Oculus Quest or the Oculus Go, it's still very, very limited as far as the things that you can do, the amount of screens that you can have, the amount of people that you can have in it. Whereas, obviously, if you go to something like a very high-end PC with the GTX, say 2080 Ti, or, whatever the highest-end PC components are out at the time, you can obviously fit a lot more people, but what's the limit? 100, 200? At some point you're going to find it getting, more and more exponentially hard to, compute and analyze all the different avatars and people and where they're going and all the minute, differences that they're making within a VR headset. Being able to duck and having the full 6 degrees of freedom to move around and not having it be computer generated, but having, to keep track of what everyone's doing. So hopefully I'd like to see, considering how exponential the growth in technology has been over the past couple of decades, that within the next maybe 10 years, 15 years, that something like that would be possible. I'd say maybe even the next 5 or so, if we really keep it up at the current pace. But by that point, is VR even going to be relevant enough, or are we going to come up with some other method? Because I know AR has definitely been in the news a lot. I think HTC is coming out with new AR headset in the next year or two, and as opposed to actually putting on a headset and being in the world, a lot of people prefer the idea of having it as augmented reality does, people showing up in your current environment instead of taking you fully out of it. So I think that'll, primarily be a lot of people and companies, for that matter's, focus once the technology gets far enough where instead of, focusing on full immersed, conferences and that sort of thing, they'll go for a more augmented approach to it. That's just a personal opinion, though. What do you guys think about that? Any thoughts from anyone on that matter?
One of the things that I hear Annalise say a lot that I think touches on what you brought up was the how immersed she gets when she gets into VR, and I think that that's what really pulls her in. She's been playing Rick and Morty a lot lately. Definitely check her out on Blockchain UniVRse YouTube channel. But um, touching back on what you're saying, I think that a lot of those challenges could really be solved with AI. Going back to the conversation of having a lot of people all on the same server. Yeah, it might be hard for one computer to be able to operate that, but I think having an AI on the server and being able to connect all of those different computers together and being able to operate that full functioning world with, let's say, a million people in one space, I think it's going to be possible. Like you said, 10, 15 years, hopefully less. I also think that with AR, that's another platform that would definitely need AI in order for it to be as immersive as you had said. In 10, 15 years, we could have more immersive AR, but it won't be as immersive unless we have, like, let's say, depth sensing cameras with AI that could then be able to take your living space or your play space and then generate a immersive experience over that with lightweight headsets, which would probably need to be in the cloud since the processing power wouldn't be there on such small devices. So I definitely think that AI is going to come into play with making these immersive experiences both in virtual reality and augmented reality as efficient as possible.
Oh, totally. And in fact, the Apple augmented reality glasses is proof of this concept because they actually own a patent right now where literally the glasses are supposed to replace the phone itself. You were supposed to be able to have a heads-up display that connects to your Apple phone, your Apple Watch, and your AirPods all at once. But eventually, they want to drop the actual iPhone and literally put everything on board inside of the glasses. That way, of course, you just wear the computer on your face, or you have a pair of contacts, for instance. And all this is going to have to be working across a distributed network of nodes to share compute resources. And it's obviously coming. It's just a matter of when. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely agree. It's just a matter of when. The technology is advancing rapidly.
Mhm.
I think we touched on a lot of great topics today. Anybody else have any last topics they want to bring up?
Nope, I just want to tell everyone to make sure you buy Bitcoin. This is not financial advice.
Absolutely.
Right, but we didn't tell you.
Oh man, I don't know if you guys are into crypto out there in the crowd, but it's the new wave. And just saying, take a look into it, explore it, understand how to invest. The wealthiest people in the world are wealthy because they invest. Just
All right. On that note, I want to say, any questions from the audience?
Yes, that's what I was about to inquire. Yes, someone
You
from
guys
the back here.
should be able to talk now.
Stoner kept.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We
What's
can
up?
hear you. Go ahead, buddy.
Hi, I came from the Telegram channel VR Bitcoin, so I noticed, I forgot who's from Blockchain VR here. Blockchain Games. Oh, okay, cool. I used to follow you guys. Remember when you did your first expo? I think that was you in VR. Pretty cool. We've been talking a lot in this Telegram channel about setting up a world. I'm creating a world right now in VR chat for this specific, especially for a conference. I'm stoked to be here. Been wanting to come to these meetups. Haven't had a chance to, but finally I got some time to. But I see the space as it's going into VR, especially in crypto. I think this is going to be pretty big once we start implementing those crypto payments inside, but I think we're quite a ways from that. But I don't know, it just all seems like a Ready Player One type of movement going on right now, which is really cool.
I absolutely agree. And glad you joined us, Stone Crypt. Yeah, so basically, we hosted a conference, Brian to my right and I, last year in August, as well as I did one earlier in January this year. Just really focused on bringing a lot of the community together, bringing a lot of regular streamers that are out there, as well as other game developers together, making sure that the audience is aware of what's going on in the blockchain gaming space, and just trying to really help push mass adoption as more and more people need to know what's going on with the space. You brought up the Ready Player One effect and how it's really going to be awesome to be able to just trade our assets across different platforms, different games. I think it's really amazing what these developers are doing as the technology develops and grows. And it's really up to us, the content creators, to create more immersive experiences that pull in the average user to come and experience these virtual worlds, as well as go to some of the conferences, which I think you came in a little bit late. We were touching on a bit on how, with a lot of conferences now canceling due to the coronavirus, it's great to be able to have VR as a way for people to still attend conferences without needing to travel physically to go to the conferences and possibly get sick. So glad you showed up. Hope that we can get more people to come and see what's going on in virtual reality and attend more of these meetings. We do this every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, as well as on Saturdays we host another meetup. That's more of just a fun hangout experience. We'll play some games, stuff like that. And also check out our channel, Blockchain UniVRse, on YouTube, where we play some video games from time to time. Really trying to make a streaming channel full of VR, PC, console, whatever type of games you play. We want to be able to have one dedicated channel for all of us to be able to play on. So, Brian, on that note, do you have any last comments?
No, yeah, that all sounded good. Thank you everyone for joining in, as well as to everyone who is watching the stream not on Altspace. As you said, every Tuesday as well as every Saturday. I'm also streaming this on Block Decentral, my YouTube channel, for anyone that may have found the link through there or is watching through there. So definitely keep an eye out. More videos coming soon, Decentraland, and so on and so forth. Patrick, I don't know if you have anything you want to chime in or any last notes, but
might be AFK. Well, on that note, guys, thank you so much for joining us and in the stream.
On this Monday night, ramping up the response to the COVID-19 outbreak.
We are in uncharted territory.
The steps Canada is taking as the outbreak grows and the U.S. records new deaths. A draft deal for the Wet'suwet'en people of British Columbia.
The only way that we can make Canada a better country is if we do it together.
What it could mean for future oil and gas projects. Plus, the desperate attempts migrants are again making to try to reach Europe. And we're streaming live now, the new way to get global news on a device near you.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin with the outbreak of COVID-19 and what you need to know about its spread. The numbers keep changing, and so does the advice about travel. With March break around the corner, we know many Canadians are wondering about their plans. Here's where things stand right now. Canadians are being advised to avoid all non-essential travel to parts of northern Italy. That includes Venice and Milan. That same strict warning is in place for all of China and all of Iran, plus 2 cities in the southeast of South Korea where outbreaks have occurred. Canadians are being told to exercise a high degree of caution in other parts of South Korea and in Japan. And starting today, anyone who arrives in Canada from Iran is being asked to self-isolate and monitor themselves for symptoms. The World Health Organization says there are now 9 times more new cases outside China than inside China. The virus has been detected in more than 60 countries, including Senegal, Tunisia, Jordan, and Iceland. Though it's important to note, many of those countries have only 1 or 2 cases. Interrupting the spread is the goal of public health experts. Some infectious disease specialists say that's no longer possible because it appears the virus can be spread by people who have no symptoms. But the World Health Organization is urging countries to put containment measures in place.
We are still hopeful that containment is the right first strategy. But clearly, containment with the purpose of slowing down the virus. And if we're lucky and if we do the job really well, we may get the opportunity. We just might get the opportunity to interrupt transmission.
Here in Canada, there are now 27 confirmed cases after 3 more positive tests in Ontario. All the Canadian cases are believed to be linked to travel. There's still no evidence of community transmission. But in the U.S., that is no longer the case. People appear to be contracting the virus in the community from people who have not traveled to countries where there's an outbreak. In Washington state, that's just across the border from B.C., 6 people have now died. And authorities are preparing for that number to rise because it's believed the virus may have been circulating there undetected for weeks. Abigail Beeman has tonight's top story.
A germ-minimizing elbow bump greeting as health officials across the U.S. focus on reducing the spread of the new coronavirus. It's spreading to new states, with the first cases in Rhode Island, Florida.
The first patient's an adult resident in Manatee County without travel history to China or other countries identified for restricted travel by the CDC.
And New York.
We are fully coordinated. We are fully mobilized.
New York's governor stresses the key is reducing the spread. Elimination is impossible. Andrew Cuomo promising new bleach cleaning protocols in schools and on public transportation, and more than 1,000 devoted hospital beds.
We want 1,000 tests per day. Test as many as you can, and then isolate those people.
Federal officials are promising more test kits, everyone bracing for a further spike in cases, in part because of increased testing. And nationally, the spotlight is really on Washington state, with at least half a dozen deaths and an increase in cases at this nursing home.
The risk for all of us of becoming infected will be increasing. And although most of the cases will be mild or moderate, the infection can cause serious illness, and there's a potential for many people to become ill at the same time.
In Texas, there's frustration with federal authorities after a woman who traveled there from Wuhan, China, was released from quarantine after testing negative twice, and then brought back into isolation after a third test came back positive.
We simply cannot have a screw-up like this from our federal partners.
I know that my husband's testing this morning, so we're praying for a negative tonight.
These women are leaving quarantine in Nebraska, but leaving their husbands behind for now. The men tested positive after being aboard the Diamond Princess cruise ship, which docked in Japan. This pair now has new fears about going home.
Will my friends shun me when we go back, or just the community in particular? Will they shun us, be afraid of us?
With the new coronavirus increasingly on everyone's minds as it continues to spread. This afternoon, U.S. President Donald Trump and his coronavirus task force met with pharmaceutical executives. The president saying everyone's goal is to accelerate the development of a coronavirus vaccine. He also said he's eyeing new travel restrictions, but didn't offer any details. Donna?
Okay, Abigail Beeman in Washington, thank you. Public health officials in Canada say the risk here is still low, and the only confirmed cases here are travel-related. That almost certainly, though, will change. Experts in infectious disease say the window is closing on what needs to happen to ensure our healthcare system can cope. And that includes precautions to keep frontline healthcare workers safe and increased surveillance and testing instead of waiting for people to show up at emergency rooms. About 2,900 people in Canada have been tested so far. Robin Gill looks at how Canada's public health response is being stepped up.
In the Greater Toronto Area, the Transit Authority is trying to find passengers who may have traveled with a 34-year-old woman recently diagnosed with the new coronavirus after arriving from Iran. The fear, COVID-19 spreading at the community level.
We're cooperating fully with the public health authorities to help them trace the customers on that train and get information to them.
Canada has a pandemic plan that was implemented post-SARS and tested in 2009 during the H1N1 epidemic. It involves a command center with health experts to guide hospitals in case of a mass health scare.
You always want to have these things in place before there's the need, and that you're planning for that and prepared for that.
Canada's top doctor says there's a new surveillance system in place since the appearance of COVID-19 in this country.
So these are people who have certain symptoms, like flu-like symptoms, and it's adding the COVID-19 test to those kind of testing.
Anyone showing symptoms is being advised to call public health authorities before showing up at hospitals. But there's no way to monitor that. And here's why that's troubling.
This is a virus that can be transmitted when people have very mild symptoms. People may not know to present, and so it is quite possible that those containment measures will not work in the long run.
Is Canada perfectly prepared? Difficult to say.
Dr. Srinivas Murthy is working with the World Health Organization to track COVID-19.
Making sure hospitals are adequately staffed, making sure people know where to seek care if they need to at the public level, making sure all the supply chains are readily checked, namely masks and gloves and other personal protective equipment.
There's a run on stocks of cleaning supplies and sanitizers in case this turns into a worse outbreak. For the most part, though, Canadians are remaining calm.
Trying to not buy into the hysteria that's going on.
But it could be a matter of time before the disease isn't just one brought in through travel.
It's not improbable that more cases will be happening here, even at the community level.
And health professionals say that will be the next front in the battle against this virus. Robin Gill, Global News, Vancouver.
Other countries like the UK are preparing for the number of cases to rise significantly and are ramping up their preparations. There are 39 confirmed cases in the UK now, but public health officials there say widespread transmission is highly likely. The Prime Minister held an emergency meeting about COVID-19 today, and the European Union has raised the risk from moderate to high. As Crystal Gamansing reports, everyone is watching what's happening in Italy, Iran, and South Korea.
It is a mammoth task, sanitizing a mall with the hope of keeping people in Seoul healthy. The number of people infected with COVID-19 in South Korea has climbed past 4,000, the highest count outside of China. People are fearful of the disease and suspicious of those around them. This 20-year-old student says maybe the person is my neighbor or passed me by. This is highly contagious, so I don't know what to do. I'm worried about going outside. Many of the infections are in the southeast, and transmission can be linked back to members of a secretive religious sect. City officials are asking prosecutors to file homicide and other charges against members of the sect. Monday, the leader begged for forgiveness on his knees. Members did not initially disclose they had been traveling to Wuhan, China. The founder says, I'm really grateful that the government has been making efforts to stop the coronavirus spread, and at the same time, I'm asking for forgiveness. In Israel, this is what voting day looks like in the middle of a global epidemic. Officials took precautions